Greetings fellow snowflakes, this is my spiritual journey, the series where I vlog about my experiences as I grow and explore as a pagan. And we're still going through my eclectic pantheon and looking at the different gods I portray on my altar. And this time we're looking at the gods of the mystery. In ancient times there were a bunch of gods and the cults and myths surrounding them which are referred to by scholars as mystery religions. Mystery religion gods were associated with the seasons and with agriculture, and they are portrayed in their myths as dying and then being brought back to life, which is a story that on the surface represents the changing of the seasons, the death that comes with the winter and the rebirth that occurs in the spring. But what is interesting about these gods is that their stories formed the basis of often secretive cults who went through various dramatic and sometimes mind-altering rituals and reenactments of the myth, which was supposed to result in some kind of spiritual enlightenment, or at the very least a sense of initiation into something that could result in salvation of the soul, or a guaranteed place in some kind of heaven or paradise. Details are murky. These cults were rather secretive after all, the deeper mysteries supposedly only revealed to those who were initiated into the group. And yes, a lot has been written about how the myths of these mystery gods resemble the story of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, how the Jesus story has been embellished by mystery religion elements, or perhaps how Jesus never even existed at all, but is a fictional creation, an amalgamation of the Jewish Messiah with a pagan mystery religion god, a sort of Jewish mystery religion god if you like. That subject is outside of the scope of this video, so I will simply say, yes, I think that although the Jewish revolutionary and Messiah figure depicted in the Gospels may have been a real person, that Paul in particular was heavily influenced by mystery religion ideas and myths, and that this then affected the consequent development of Christian thought and belief, and so the Gospels too contain significant borrowings from pagan ideas and stories. But anyway, back to paganism. There are many of these mystery religion gods and stories from many different cultures all over the Near and Middle East. The earliest was Osiris in the Egyptian Pantheon, whose rituals and cults weren't even secret. Then there is Tammuz, Adonis, Attis, Mithra from various places such as Canaan, Mesopotamia, Persia and Asia Minor. And in Greek mythology we have a few of them. There's Dionysus, Orpheus, Persephone, all from the Greek Pantheon. I don't know an awful lot about the Babylonian and Persian ones, etc., so I'm just going to focus on my favourite ones, Osiris from Egypt and Dionysus and Persephone from Greece. Mystery religions are important to me personally, and in creating my own eclectic pantheon, because they not only represent the turning of the seasons, but also a profound spiritual experience of symbolic death and resurrection. In other words, these dying and rising gods represent spiritual transformation, growth and change. I have my own kooky interpretation of the Jesus myth that I won't go into in detail here, that because God is good, and free will includes the possibility of evil happening, then God symbolically dies so that we might live. Neat, huh? But I'm not a Christian, so perhaps we should forget about all that. In any case, though, an important part of this idea is that when we make mistakes and get things wrong, we kind of undergo a death inside ourselves. And when we learn from our mistakes, when we grow and transform, become more enlightened, we are symbolically reborn or resurrected into a new life. This is not an alien idea to Christians. In fact, it's there in many of their teachings. But the original blueprint for this kind of mythology is in the pagan faiths and cults that preceded Christianity. Mystery gods are gods that represent the profound transformations, the sometimes painful ways we grow, learn and become better in our human lives generally, and in our development and progress spiritually. This makes them very important and emotionally deep and satisfying additions to any pantheon or spiritual philosophy. The first mystery religion god was Osiris, and this particular mythos remains significant to me. Osiris was murdered by his brother Set, placed in a coffin, and then his body was dismembered into 14 parts, which were scattered across the world. Isis, his wife, collected the 14 parts, although she failed to find the phallus and had to make one, and put him back together, mummifying his body and then bringing him back to life. She had a son with him, Horus, who was the one to actually fight and defeat Set afterwards. A fascinating element to the Osiris story is the role played by the women. Both Isis and Nephthys are often pictured with Osiris and portrayed as mourning for his death, and they both played roles in the Egyptian concept of death, judgment and the afterlife. I have a picture on my altar of Osiris attended by both Isis and Nephthys, and to me Isis and Nephthys are important parts of my devotion to this idea and this mythos too. I love goddesses anyway, and welcome any opportunity to celebrate the feminine aspects of the divine. Isis is the wife of Osiris. She mourns his death. She shows great devotion by collecting the pieces of his dismembered body, putting them together, and raising him back to life. This reminds us of the mournful, painful side of the transformative process of spiritual growth, and the importance of love. But Nephthys fascinates me too. She was actually married to Set, the one who murdered Osiris, and yet she is often portrayed in attendance to Osiris, and her son Anubis is often said to be offspring of her and Osiris, not Set. This makes me wonder many things. Was she mistreated by Set? Did she love Osiris instead? Was she actually suffering and in pain just as much, if not more, than Isis? What deep, mysterious, unspoken elements to the Osiris myth are hiding, just out of sight? She is mysterious. We don't actually know much about her story, which just adds to how much I feel intrigued and moved by it. I sense that there is a deep pain in Nephthys, and in fact a fallenness, regret, dare I say penitent aspect to her devotion to Osiris. This too is a profound and meaningful element to this mythos, at least potentially so. So I have Osiris, Isis and Nephthys on my altar. I also have Dionysus. He's right there with Hermes, the baby Dionysus raised by Hermes, or so the myths tell. Dionysus was a god of wine, intoxication and pleasure. I think you can see why such a deity would appeal to me. But he is also a mystery religion god. He too dies and is then reborn. And he too had a cult that celebrated his story as a representation of spiritual transformation and renewal, often with the help of intoxicating drink or even possibly hallucinogens. Some of us know very well how new inspirations and breakthrough moments of understanding can seem to result from the use of hallucinogenic substances. Anyway, Dionysus is also an important mystery deity in my eclectic pantheon. I want to end this video by talking about another great Greek myth of renewal and transformation, of the turning of the seasons, and the mystery cult that surrounded it. I don't have a portrayal of Persephone on my altar, but there is a lot I like about her story, and it is another mystery religion tradition that I acknowledge and honour, that stirs my heart and inspires me. The mysteries of the Persephone story are known as the Eleusinian mysteries. Persephone was the daughter of Demeter, a goddess of grain and agriculture, all the wealth and harvest that the earth can bring. In the myth, Persephone is abducted by Hades, who rules the underworld deep beneath the earth where the dead go. Demeter, with some help from Hermes, searches for, finds and rescues Persephone. But Hades played one final trick, and eventually Persephone had to stay with Hades for a portion of the year, the winter, and return to the surface and to her mother Demeter for the rest of the year, the spring and summer. This obviously tells of the turning of the seasons, how crops and vegetation die in the winter and are reborn in the spring. But like all these mystery religion myths, there was a cult based on the story, a cult that treated the myth as a profound mystery about the death and rebirth of the human soul, about spiritual transformation and growth. I like the Persephone myth, and I feel drawn to the character of Persephone as a result. So there they are, the mystery religion deities and myths that I feel inspired by in creating my own eclectic pantheon. Osiris, Dionysus and Persephone, as well as the goddesses of the Osiris myth, Isis and Nephthys. Next time on the Constructing a Pantheon section of my Spiritual Journeys series, I will look at two goddesses I feel a particular affinity and devotion for, Athena and Aphrodite. Until then, be kind to yourselves and to each other. We're all different, we're all special. Snowflakes unite.